Okay, so for this video we're going to talk about the Amkus tools carried on Rescue 5, and we'll also get into the Amkus tools carried on the engines in the Alpha Fire Company. We're going to start with the Rescue though. We're going to start with the specs of the tools, general operation, maintenance, care, what to look for. We'll also go over the procedure for starting them. So first thing we'll do is check out the starting procedure in the cab for drivers. Alright, so starting off in the cab here, with the vehicle running obviously, we have instructions here on how to start the Amca system. It may be a little bit hard to see with this camera, but the sequence is that we're going to flip the generator switch under the red cover and then press the white Amkus tool switch. We have to do it in that order. So with the vehicle running, we're going to flip up our red cover here, we're going to flip on our generator, and then we'll press our Amkus tool switch here. That will start the Amkus system, and then we can hop out and proceed to compartment 1. Okay, so moving into the Amkus tools themselves, on both sides we have pretty much the same setup with a couple differences. On the driver's side here we have a pair of spreaders and a pair of cutters and 2 rams. A 40-inch ram that's 40 inches fully extended and a 60-inch ram. So our 2 tools, our cutters and spreaders on this side, are pre-connected. Obviously they're the red and blue line. They're 100-foot lines. They're strapped in here. And this is our smaller pair of spreaders. If you look down here at the label, these are 24-inch spreaders, whereas the other side is 30-inch spreaders. These ones weigh about 10 pounds less. It's pretty obvious the difference between the two when you're holding them. And also, if you can't remember if you have the bigger pair or not, you just look at the label and it says Amca 24, meaning that these are 24-inch spreaders. So those are our spreaders on this side. All of these tools operate at a max pressure of 10,500 psi. The spreading force at the tip of the spreaders is 100,000 pounds. Alright, our cutters on this side, these are 21A cutters. These are a little bit smaller than the cutters on that side. The crushing force is just a little bit less. Again, it's near 100,000 pounds at the tip. And they are a little bit faster though, just by about a second. Their open and close time is about 4 seconds, whereas the open and close time on the larger cutters on the other side is about 5 seconds. And these are also about 10 pounds lighter than the spreaders on the other side. So these can do the job in most cases. I'm not telling anybody to shy away from using these, but just know that we have bigger spreaders and bigger cutters on the officer side. So things to look for when using these. We're not going to get a whole lot into operation and where we're spreading, where we're cutting, but things to look for when using them. We want to be using these with as open of a hand as possible. Gripping onto this really tight and turning it might not allow for us to let go if we need to at a moment's notice, whether that be something with the patient or because the tool itself is turning. So we want to be trying to use this with an open hand if we can. You might have to grip it with 2 fingers, but we want to try to keep our hand, as free as possible so that we're able to release quickly if we need to. That goes for both the cutters and the spreaders. The spreaders have on these gator tips, and as you can see, these have some pretty aggressive teeth on them that are made so that we don't get too much slipping when we're using them. The spreaders do have some different accessories. We have the extended reach tips, so these would be installed on the spreaders if we need a little bit more room or if we want to gain some extra spread. So as you can see with me installing these, I start with about 10 extra inches of spread there, and these are swapped out simply by pressing these 2 buttons together here and pulling off the tip. So there is a pair of extended reach tips on both sides of the rig. The other pairs of spreaders do start with the gator teeth on them, as is the same with the spreaders on all of our pumpers. So that's a spreader, cutter, similar operation with the hand, and just know that the cutter is not a perfect circle. So when we're cutting with this, it's going to want to force material to run long ways in here. So if we start sideways on a post, it's going to want to go to the path of least resistance, and that's when we might see the tool turn. So that's something to be aware of. One thing that comes up often is, are we able to attach and detach these tools while the system is running? The answer is yes. It's easier, and you can do it with little to no effort when the system is not running, or excuse me, when the tools are not charged. I can just click that together very easily. However, sometimes we may be far away from the operator. It may be a really loud scene, and the operator can't hear us trying to say, shut that tool down. So you can change them with the tool charge. You might have to sort of grip it a little bit harder. What I like to do is start with my hands completely opposite, so that I get some more leverage and I can click it that way. One more thing to look for with these is, if they're not connected, always make sure that caps are in place. So either the cap is on the male or female end, so that we're not getting debris in the couplings. If we do get debris in the couplings, we want to try to blow that out before we reattach them, so that we're not damaging the tool. That can be done, if we're on scene, that can be done on the fly, using a cylinder, cracking it open and blowing some air in there. But we really don't want debris to get in these tools or in these couplings, because that'll disrupt the flow of the hydraulic fluid. Maintenance with these, as far as it goes for anyone watching this video, is really just making sure they're clean. So after a call, we want to make sure they're clean. We're wiping down any excess oil on them. These always sort of have an oil film on them, because this is always sweating a little bit of oil when it's running. So we want to wipe that down, wipe down any debris, and then test the tool, of course. So after we've used it for a prolonged period of time, we want to bring it back, clean it up, hook it back up, and test it, make sure it's working properly. Final thing is to, of course, make sure it's stowed properly. And to stow these properly, before we turn them off, first we want to make sure that the tips are in the right place. So the tips on the spreaders should be just slightly apart. That is to make sure that they're in the ready position, but also we don't want them touching, because that'll put too much pressure on the system when it's not needed, and then we can't swap out these teeth right away. So if these are touching, then we don't have the option to swap these teeth out until the system's on. So we want to make sure that those teeth are just about touching, make sure that that's seated in there properly, and strapped in. For the spreaders, we want to make sure that these tips are just barely overlapping, so that they don't get snagged on anything, and again, just make sure that they're properly strapped in. Moving on to the rams. The rams here do not have these newer Amkus grips on them. We don't have to be as careful with this in terms of not gripping that tightly. The reason for that is, once these are in place, they're not going to twist, they're not going to move. If anything, what we're pushing may slip, but that's not really going to put our hand in too much danger. Whereas with the cutters and spreaders, death gripping that could get us caught while the tool is moving. So a couple things to note about the spreaders, the rams, is that these tips are removable. I'll show you the tip accessory kit on the other side. These are often extremely difficult to get off, and if that's the case, just grab the nearest screwdriver, pair of pliers, something with a handle, slip it through that tip there, and then use that leverage to get the tip off. So these tips come off, they're interchangeable, and I'll show you the accessory kit on the other side. The only difference between these two rams here is the length. So bedded, they are almost the same size, but when they're fully extended, this ram here is 40 inches and this ram is 60 inches. We have the same setup on each side, and these tools are not connected. So make sure that these are capped, so that when we go to use them, we know that the coupling is clean and we don't have to worry about it. When we're done with the tools, again, we just want to make sure they're clean. We want to make sure that Our tray here is pushed in fully. And that we secure our hoses. And that's it for the Amca system on this side. We're going to go on the other side. We're going to talk about a couple of the minor differences between the officer side and the driver side Amkus tools, as well as look at a couple of the accessories that we have for the system. Alright, so here on the other side of the rescue, the officer side, we have our two we have our two rams, we have our cutters, our spreaders. Again, these are a little bit bigger. We have the Amkus 30-inch spreaders and the 22 cutters. These have just a little bit more power, and another feature is that the handle on here swivels. That's not something that we run into real often where we need to swivel that handle, but we might get in a tight spot where the handle on the other pair of cutters is in the way and we need to use these. The last Amkus tool on this side is the Speedway Cutters. So these cutters, they run a lot faster than the other ones. They have bigger teeth, as you can see, but they don't have the same crushing force at the tip, or cutting force. So they are not always hooked up. They have their place. They are great for cutting sail posts on vehicles or lighter metal. They really can do a lot of the cutting that the 21 and 22 cutters can also do. However, they're just not normally our first option. So those are the Speedway Cutters. They're on here. They're perfectly fine to use. They're just normally not our first option, so they're not hooked up. Now, accessories. Right behind our red entry kit here, we have two accessories for the Amca system. First, we have our ram accessory kit, and this comes with two different tips. So these rams, just like the other side, have the same tip installed. This one has a tip with a rounded channel in it in case we're trying to grab onto a bar. Maybe we have really good access to a dash bar, and we can put this right on there. And then we have a tip, a cone tip. So maybe we have a really nice pocket where we can get this to fit into, and it'll get us a really good purchase. The situations are endless. Just know that we have these two different tips here just in case. And then also we have a 1-foot extension. So if we just barely aren't getting what we need, we can back the tool out, put our 1-foot extension on, and try again. So that's the ram accessory kit located right here. And then back here we have our chain attachments. So these slide on the tips of the spreaders, just like the extended reach tips. And these have grade 80 chain on them, rated at about 7,000 pounds. I'm sorry, this is grade 70 chain, rated at 6,600 pounds. And what we can do with these is if we push down on this latch here, the chain will move in and out freely. So we can hook these up to our tips, grab onto something, and we can either spread or pull inward. So if we had our two tips on and we had our hooks on, we hook the two things, close our spreaders, and spread inward. Or we could put one tip on, hook it to something, anchor the other tip against something, and as we open up our spreaders, pull against something. So that's the spreader chain attachment, and it's located right here behind the ram accessory kit. So that's pretty much it for the Amca system. One thing to always look for is leaks. We don't deal with a lot of leaks on here, but they do happen, and if you see an abnormal amount of fluid anywhere, please let me or someone else know. It collects over time, and we do have a film on a lot of the tools, and that's just from normal wear and tear. The hydraulic fluid, sort of wants to move where it pleases, and we do get a little bit of hydraulic fluid here and there. But if you think you see something that's a major leak, please let somebody know. So that's it for the tools on the rescue. Quickly, we'll check out the tools on the engine, and that'll wrap up the Amkus tools used by the Alpha Fire Company. Alright, so here we are at the rear of engine 5.2 with the engine's hydraulic tools. We have this exact hydraulic tool set up on engine 5.2, engine 5.4, engine 5.1, and Quint 5. Engine 5.3 has a pump but does not have tools. So if engine 5.2 or another engine is out of service, we can just move the tools over to 5.3 because it has the pump. It just does not have the hydraulic tools. So we have the same 24 spreaders and 21A cutters on here. We have the same size pump. These are, I'm sorry, we have the same a pump with the same power. These are rated at 10,500 psi at full pressure. However, this pump is not two-stage and will not kick in another stage if both tools are running. So that's not to say that we can't use both tools. We absolutely can. They may just be a little bit underpowered. So to use this pump, as all of our drivers know, we have to start the generator, then we come over here, we flick on our switch, and to charge each tool, we would flip this handle the entire way. If we know that we're going to use both tools, you can flip both handles the whole way. Unless both tools are operating at the same time, it shouldn't interrupt pressure. So if we have a post that we're just barely not able to cut, or something that we're just barely not able to spread, see if both tools are being used at the same time. If they are, try again using only one tool, see if that gets you the pressure you need, and if it doesn't, then we're going to have to either try another tool or go to something else. So that's the hydraulic tools on the engines. We'll check out the hydraulic, or excuse me, hydraulic or battery powered tools here, and that'll wrap everything up. Alright, so here at the rear of engine 5.2 we have our hydraulic or E-tools. These are run by 60 volt DeWalt batteries. They have similar power to the hydraulic tools. Both of them can run at full power for about 25 minutes, and we have spare batteries in compartment 1. So if we run out, you can go ahead and swap them. Those batteries will only charge on the shoreline, so they won't be charging on scene, but this at least gives us about 50 minutes of full power on both of these tools before we're needing to look into anything else. So one huge advantage of these is, of course, they don't have a limit in how far we can go, whereas the hydraulic tools on the reel do. To use these, all we do is we hold the on button here for about 2 seconds, it turns on, and then just like the other tools, we just turn the handle. When we're done, we want to make sure it's off by again holding the on button for about 2 seconds. One neat thing about these cutters here is they have a light. So there's a light on the handle there with 3 different stages. Spreaders do not have that light, but the cutters of course do. So changing these batteries is just like changing a battery on a DeWalt tool. We press down on the button here and slide it out. So for maintenance on these, we of course want to make sure they're clean and ready to go, but also we want to check the battery, make sure it's got 3 bars of charge. And even if it does have 3 bars of charge, we want to be swapping those out periodically on weekly rig checks, just to make sure that they're getting reconditioned on the charger. So that does it for the hydraulic tools. We have these E-tools on engine 5.2 and engine 5.4, and in the future we'll likely be moving to all E-tools on our new Rescue, which we'll be speccing out in a couple of years. So if you haven't really experimented with these, make sure you get your hands on these, check them out, and know how to use them, because this is really where we're going to be moving in the future. So that concludes all of the Amkus tools used by the fire company. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but realize that they're really simple to take care of. We just want to make sure that they're clean and ready to use, and really these are robust tools that we can always rely on as long as we take care of them. One last thing I wanted to talk about here that I forgot is the Amkus portable generator. So this is in compartment 2 on the officer side of the Rescue. We have 3 50-foot reels for it, and this sees less use than it used to because we now have the E-tools that have unlimited range. However, in the past, or if we have the Rescue on a mutual aid call where we don't have our E-tools, we may need to use this generator to allow our tools to move further away from the rig should we have an accident off the roadway, or perhaps we're parked out from the scene pretty far and they need more tools. So this runs just like any other generator. We choke the engine, put the throttle on low, it should start first pull, and then it functions just like the pumps on the engines or on all of the pumpers, where we just need to hook our tool into it and turn our handle if we want to use it. Again, this isn't a two-stage pump, so we will get more power by just using one at a time, but that's not to say that we can't use both, and even both tools running at the same time should still get us adequate power to do whatever function we need to do. So that's the portable generator, and now that concludes the Amkus tools used by the Alpha Fire Company.